Okay, whenever you're ready, Marina. It's great to have you here today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. So I'm going to walk you through my journey of starting a company, about what my company Waste Free Earth does, and I'll give you some tips at the end. I am an East Coaster, so naturally I talk fast. I'm going to try to slow it down, but let me know if you guys need me to go back to something and I'll adjust there. All right. Cool. Sometimes it works. All right. This has a lot on the page because usually I send this to my clients, but I fortunately won a lot of awards this year after losing all my clients during COVID. But I got awarded Vermont Young Entrepreneur of the Year, Vermont Businesses for Social Responsibility, Young Changemaker, Vermont Businesses Magazine 40 Under 40, along with being nominated 1% for the Planet. And I made it as a finalist for Forbes 30 Under 30. I don't know if I'll make it this year, but being a finalist was really awesome. And I founded my company, Waste Free Earth, after seeking a lack of education and successful implementation around the zero waste movement and events. On a personal note, I've been living zero waste for 6 years. I usually collect my waste in a mason jar for the whole year. Because of COVID, I definitely have a lot more non-recyclable or compostable waste as I usually do, but I'm still collecting it. And yeah, I really like to teach people how to live zero waste. I feel really fortunate to have a job where I continuously get to tell people how they can reduce their impact. How I got started was I basically had a hypocritical moment at this event called the Friendly Gathering, which happened an hour south of my hometown in Rutland, Vermont. So when I was out in college in Tahoe, I would come back and I was studying sustainability and also business while in college. And I thought because I was studying sustainability, it made me uber sustainable when in fact it didn't, because I wasn't practicing what I preached. So while I was at the event, I noticed that I brought all these glow sticks with me and solo cups and just a ton of waste. So from that moment on, I decided I wanted to be a part of the solution. And I instantly became pretty obsessed with waste. First, it was food waste. And then I realized how big of a problem the waste industry was, which brought me back to the next year being at Friendly Gathering and offering my support to lead their sustainability department. And I ended up signing a multi-year contract with them afterwards, after like not knowing how to do anything. I was 20 years old when I led my first department. And that was really cool because there's a couple thousand people at the event and I was in charge of like 50 volunteers and everything like that. So it kind of just started to roll while I was in college. And then I graduated in 2016 and I started traveling the country setting up sustainable programs for events 2 days after I graduated. That was a lot of fun. I traveled all around the country. And during that summer, I ended up buying a Sprinter van and converted that into a living area and also a remote office. So I made a pop-up desk so that way I could bring myself to the events, since when you are first getting into the event industry, they don't pay for your travel or lodging. So I essentially made myself available to them. And that's how I built up my client base, which I still have today. Everyone's on hiatus since events are done for the time being. And I also was able to reach one of my goals of speaking on TEDx 6 months after graduation. That was actually on my 5-year goal. So that was pretty cool. And I created my company 2 nights before my TEDx on a couch that I was house sitting at in Tahoe. Like I said, that's where I went to school. So that was my unconventional way of being an entrepreneur. I was just doing it on my own. And then I figured when I was giving a TEDx talk that I should probably have a company to go under. So I created Waste Free Earth then. So Waste Free Earth, we create award-winning systems that empower others to incorporate zero waste behaviors. No matter your industry, we help companies achieve their sustainability goals with an emphasis on zero waste initiatives. We are on a mission to create a waste-free earth with companies that care. And it's really important for me to have a socially responsible company as well. We are 100% woman-owned and operated. I've bootstrapped my company from the start, not taking out any outside loans or investors, which we've been going back and forth with the investor route. We're a 1% for the Planet contributing member and Vermont Businesses for Social Responsibility. we're very active members in both, which is really important to me, not that we're just paying the yearly fee. Our company culture is goofy and fun, especially when we're on site. The best way to inspire people to create change is by having fun and not just preaching to them. But we definitely take work really seriously. We actually have a 100% return rate in clients and 100% client satisfaction. So we get the work done, but we like having fun while doing it. We're super collaborative. I definitely like to lead from behind and not be dictating what to do. I believe in my team. I know that they'll make the right decision. Of course, there's always times where you have employees, especially when we hire temp employees at certain locations around the company, that don't really believe in the culture, but I've just learned by having an honest conversation with them, it really works out. And like I said before, inspirational is really important to us. We teach a lot of workshops and sustainability seminars while we're typically at events. Our clients range from, as you can see, there's a lot of events on there. MTV is definitely one of our biggest clients. We do their New Year's Eve event. Again, most of these events are canceled for at least the year, probably until 2022. So I'll talk about our pivot a little bit later, but Hula's a local client, Burlington, Parks and Rec, VSET, if you guys know, Vermont Center of Emerging Technology, Vermont Wood Studio. Those are all our new clients that we are doing zero waste consulting for them throughout their either supply chains, writing sustainability focused blogs for them, or creating a whole waste diversion plan for them so that we can actually target the key waste contributors and eliminate waste from the source. To date, this is a little off because I haven't crunched the numbers in a couple months, but we've been able to divert over 600,000 pounds away from the landfill and even more from eliminating waste from the source. It was a little bit hard to get stats on that when we implement reusable systems, but in total, yeah, over 600,000 pounds, which we're really proud of. And we have reached over 1 million people with our services because we would consult Bonnaroo too, and Bonnaroo has 100,000 people in attendance. So that was really awesome to be able to reach that many people. A little case study that we have with MTV, just in 1 year alone, last year, we were able to completely eliminate 90,000 pounds from the waste stream due to our really strong sustainability programs. They've been a client for us for 5 years, so that didn't just happen overnight. It took a while to get to that point. And the year before, we were able to eliminate 30,000 pounds of waste. So just in 2 years alone, we were able to completely eliminate, not divert, like eliminate 120,000 pounds. And we set up donation programs. So we were able to donate over 3,700 pounds of warm clothing, housing material, and products, along with food and water. So we connect with the VIP areas, artist areas, to see what they're gonna have left over, along with people leave their jackets, hats, mittens at the event, which it's a winter festival, so it's quite strange. But then we go to the local laundromat and just wash everything and donate it to the local homeless shelters. And we don't sell any single-use plastic water bottles on site. We use water dispensers all across. So 64,000 water bottles were eliminated too from the waste stream. And we make staff manuals and training for proper waste diversion efforts because I noticed a lack of education within the attendees, but also the staff, because our competitors, they basically were just managing the waste. They weren't going in and trying to create a culture of sustainability. They were just managing it, having the signs up, not really working with the staff. So when we work with the staff and tell them about our goals, there's a much higher buy-in rate for our programs, and it leads to great success rates too. So during COVID, we got wiped out with all the events, and consumption of single-use plastic has increased by over 250%. So although events aren't happening, single-use consumption is up greatly. The average American produces 4.5 pounds of landfill waste per day. With less than 4% of the world's population, the US produces more than 30% of the world's total waste. So that stat, and all the stats on there, are pretty staggering, but this one hits me the most because we don't have that much population, but we consume like crazy, especially with all these subscriptions now and Amazon having 1-2 day delivery, we're just consuming at such a higher rate than we ever have before. And mass production of plastic started just 6 decades ago and has generated over 8.3 billion tons. Roughly 6.3 billion tons have become plastic waste, with only 9% of that actually getting recycled. So plastic is what we focus on the most, just because plastic is a pretty new material with how we've been consuming it. Reusable systems and buying in bulk isn't new. That has actually been happening for a while, but with plastic just coming in with all their money, they really marketed to people, especially in the 1960s, that it's better for housewives to actually get disposable stuff so they don't have to wash the dishes. So that's really how plastic started to become, might play a big role in our society. And once thought as an alternative to plastic, compostable plastics aren't properly breaking down. So we've noticed that a lot of compost facilities across the United States no longer want compostable bioplastics or just compostable products in general. So again, like we switch from one single-use alternative to another. We're not really fixing the problem, that we are going for convenience and not setting up proper reusable systems. The zero waste movement, I truly believe that the zero waste movement is the foundation of the sustainability movement. The zero waste movement emerged from consumers wanting more sustainable options when it comes to products and packaging. It's something that companies weren't really looking at. Climate change is definitely a waste management problem. Waste prevention is more effective at reducing greenhouse gas emissions that result from energy consumption than recycling or using virgin materials. To kind of explain this more, waste is related to like manufacturing and consumption. So if you look at that, like all the waste that we have is a lot of single-use items or products that aren't single-use but are made with an end of life in mind. So although I have a ton of Apple products, like their cycle is becoming smaller and smaller. Like I buy stuff refurbished and I make sure to fix it, but for an iPhone, they make it incredibly hard to just fix one thing on it. Like they make you replace it. So all that is going to waste, and recycling isn't really a thing. It's a very small rate that actually gets recycled. So really trying to change the course of how business and manufacturing is going right now. And 88% of consumers want brands to help make a difference, but only 28% of consumers say that brands actually make it easier. This goes into a lot with greenwashing, which is something I'm really passionate about that I'll talk about later. And this is like usually the pitch that we give people. Businesses have the opportunity to slash greenhouse gas emissions and contribute to a proven climate solution right now, which is zero waste initiatives. This doesn't get talked about as much as like renewable energy does and our carbon footprint, but this is directly aligned with it. The zero waste movement is becoming more popular nowadays. And as you might have seen, like Starbucks has gone straw free and went with a sippy cup, but that really isn't true zero waste. That to me is greenwashing. Same with how Sprite did a whole PR release on how they're going from a green plastic bottle to now a clear plastic bottle as their zero waste initiative, because clear plastic is more recyclable. Again, like you kind of have to read through the marketing BS, because the amount of money that they spend to send out those PRs and craft them could actually have been used to create more sustainable systems. So our services include zero waste education and culture, which I've talked about before, like really laying the foundation of zero waste so that can inspire both your internal and external stakeholders, because people need to know why you're putting these systems in place. End of life product transparency is something I'm super passionate about. This is directly related to the greenwashing, and that is helping companies figure out what to actually put on their material to see if it's recyclable or non-recyclable. There's absolutely no regulations for products and if they have a recycling symbol on them. Just because they have a recycling symbol on a product doesn't make it recyclable. And even just the terms recycling, compostable, biodegradable, packaging companies could just slap that on without it actually being recyclable. So as a consumer, it's really hard to know if something is recyclable or not. Look at box water, for instance. They have all over their marketing that box water is better than plastic water bottles and that's recyclable, and all that is complete BS. It is non-recyclable. It's a complex product, meaning once you smush it together, because it's paper, cardboard, plastic, wax, foil, all smushed together into one product. So there's no way for that to actually be pulled apart to make it recyclable. And it actually is worse than plastic water bottles. So again, that's just greenwashing to the fullest extent. They've spent a lot of money on it, and the average consumer doesn't know that. And of course, our main one is waste elimination and diversion programs that we did at events. Now the zero waste culture and end of life product transparency are our main ones, just because events are no longer happening. Our big thing is empowering stakeholders to buy in through trainings, challenges, and support. We do a lot of plastic free challenges, waste challenges, just to make it fun. And we educate staff members and consumers through existing marketing channels, through blog posts, social media posts, all that stuff. What we hope to accomplish: WasteFair certified, especially for businesses. We really want to set the new standard for how businesses operate from a zero waste perspective, really trying to get them to lay the foundation before they scale, because right now we go into businesses that have been operating for a while and it costs them a ton of money to actually fix the problem. We love to inspire others to reduce waste. I teach a lot of workshops, I speak on a lot of panels and do seminars. It's my favorite thing to do, and be an active part in our community. We participate in a lot of lobbying activities, especially with BBSR that I've talked about before. I'm really into volunteering and offering up our services to nonprofits when we have the ability to do so. Our goals currently, a little plug, we're doing an iPhone Women campaign to raise money for our Zero Waste Kickstart, which is an online program where we provide startups and small businesses the tools to incorporate zero waste operations. Typically, startups and small businesses can't afford $150 or $200 an hour for consulting. So we're making a whole online platform that they'll have all of our materials and everything like that, so that they could execute it themselves. So it's a really good value, and we'll have live Q&As and all that stuff. So again, we could change the course of how businesses operate from the beginning, so we're not always acting in a reactive state. Like I mentioned before, social and environmental responsibility is really important to me. I offer livable wages starting at $15 that actually has more so increased to $25 an hour. I would just prefer my employees to not have to worry about trying to milk hours to get a certain amount that they want per week. I'd rather just increase their pay so that they become efficient and that they feel safe and they feel appreciated during that time. We're too small to really go off the beat to go through the process of being a certified benefit corporation, but we do follow that model. Once we get bigger, we'll probably do that, but I just don't want to spend the money on it right now. Our goal is to lock in more Vermont clients with the Zero Waste Kickstart program. We would love to get 50% of small businesses and startups on that program. It would be really awesome to work with Vermont businesses right here, because then we could travel to them easily and see how the program is working for them. Plus, it would provide more jobs for Vermont. I have a fellowship program set up with the UVM Sustainable Innovation Program. They are just such rock stars, and they want to stay in Vermont. There's just not many jobs here. So if I could kind of snatch them before they leave Vermont, it would be really awesome. My personal recommendations, if you are starting a business, in school, whatever it is definitely eliminating your social media time. I have limits of 45 minutes on social media networks on my phone per day, and also don't like to be on my phone more than 2 hours a day. It really helps optimize my reduces my burnout and optimizes my productivity. And being an entrepreneur, it's really important not to be too hard on yourself. You definitely become a prisoner of your own mind. So you're your worst critic and harshest critic. So emotional intelligence is really important to me. Also, I am really into mental health. I'm actually bipolar, and I have ADHD, OCD, PTSD, and severe anxiety disorder. So I have a lot of stuff. So it's really important for me to know what my triggers are so I could constantly continue to deliver to my team members And I also like saying that not to get sympathy from people, but just to show like if you are dealing with mental illnesses, you could still crush it at work. Obviously, my work speaks for myself. So don't get discouraged about that. And I also love volunteering. Giving back to my community is super important to me. I volunteer weekly. I honestly volunteer maybe a little bit too much. I estimate like 30 hours a month. So I'm trying to bring that down to like 20 hours. My business recommendations is writing a business plan and setting goals. Knowing your financials is incredibly important. I wouldn't focus too much on like being super detailed within your business plan, but you really should know your target market and financials. I never have written a business plan, and that was a huge mistake. The CEO told me not to bother with it, but you really should at least have an idea. I don't think you should spend a ton of time on it. Sometimes people stick with it too much, but knowing your financials and target market is super important. Another thing is that you should treat every opportunity like it's your big break, but also understand that not every opportunity is actually going to be your big break. It's more so like once you build up time and time again, one day like your break will happen. But when we locked in MTV, I was like, oh my God, this is our big break. This is awesome. Like clients are just going to come rolling in, and they didn't. After we started working with MTV and like showed our stats and let our work speak for ourselves, that's when the clients really started to come in. And start legal from the beginning. In the event industry, it's really common for people to W-9 their employees, which is illegal. So I made sure to have my employees up on payroll from the beginning. We definitely lost some budgets because of that, well, proposals. Just it adds a lot more onto it. Payroll is pretty expensive and all those taxes, but I, again, don't want to be doing anything illegal, and it's best to not get used to cutting corners from the beginning. So my final tips is don't use excuses when you have the ability to do so. It's super easy to use them, but having an ally and talking to like an accountability buddy or people just to get that frustration out, but then being able to get up and try again. Communication is really key. I make sure to build a circle of trust with my employees that they could talk to me about anything if they're stressed out within their home life, that they could let me know instead of not communicating with me and then missing deadlines, because that really throws myself and the whole company off. Like I said, writing a business plan and saving when you can. I'm an independent student. I was an independent student. I paid my way through everything, and I have been pretty frugal with my finances and not getting caught up into the young entrepreneurial life of like people going out and like spending all this money, especially when you're bootstrapping your company. So it's really hard to save, but if you can be frugal, it's really important, especially if you plan to bootstrap your company. Obviously, don't spend money that you don't have. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs put money on credit cards. I actually don't have a company credit card. I used to, but then I just canceled it because the temptation is always there. Networking is really important, but don't get too wrapped up in going to a ton of networking events. When I first got into business, I went to all these networking events, and honestly, they didn't really do all that much. Having conversations with people and meeting people through cohorts like me and Jay were able to meet through that actually is the best networking that I found out. And taking care of your clients, they will definitely take care of you. That's just been time and time proven. And taking care of your employees, like I've mentioned throughout this whole presentation, and keeping your company's integrity is incredibly important. I actually have let go of clients that I felt have greenwashed our efforts. People sign on to us because we have really great credibility, and attendees used to, when events were happening, go to events that we were doing their sustainability because they knew that it was going to be an earth-friendly event and super sustainable. So a couple of festivals would boost our efforts, but then actually not support us on the back end. So usually I let them after a year, knowing that if things don't change, we'll let them go as a client. And then by the second year, if it hasn't changed, then I let them go as a client. Following up is really important. I get hundreds of emails, so stuff gets lost within the jumble. And the people that work for me now, actually are the ones that followed up about working with me. I was like, oh, this person emailed me, sweet. So, and I get a lot of emails for resumes and things like that. It just gets lost. So don't be afraid to follow up. You're really not being annoying. I could promise you that. And slowly building up your team. I had friends work for me at first, and it just was not the best fit. That respect level wasn't there. I've actually had great success with my family working for me, but just find that happy medium. And building up your personal brand is really important too, because I've noticed that clients want to work with us because that I'm like Marina McCoy, a zero waste and recycling expert. That was hard to acknowledge at first because I wanted people to hire Waste Free Earth on. But once I just surrendered to that, more clients started coming in more, and being active on my LinkedIn was a big part of that. I just do this up there. This is our waste free checklist that I send to employees, just some simple swaps. You guys will get this too at the end of the presentation. And I like Buzz Lightyear. I switched it to sustainability and beyond instead, even though he's made of plastic. All right, and that's the end of my presentation. I hope you guys took something away from that. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. You'd send them in the chat, anything of that manner.
Yeah, so let's give Marina a virtual or not so virtual round of applause. Thanks for your time and joining us today. You live a very busy life, I know, and sharing your experience and your vulnerabilities means a lot to us. And I hope that there's some students that identified and you helped to light a fire in some of them. Now, you said you work with UVM a little bit. Does your company at all interested in working with students, undergrad students in the future? Or are you guys still trying to figure out where your next moves go?
Yeah, so currently I have 3 interns from UVM. UVM's been really awesome to me. If you check out the iPhone Women campaign, our intern actually created that video, Clay Drinwater. He's amazing. And I have someone who does email newsletters. We do college credit with them. One intern I've actually ended up hiring after her internship was over. So it leads to that, but we set up through Handshake, and it's worked out really, really well for us. And we usually just ask for a couple hours a week because people are in school, and I love when students double dip their school projects with our projects because
Yep.
I was really busy in school too.
So I hear you kind of made a soft offer that people to follow up with you, though, to see if anyone's really interested in what Marina does. By all means, you should feel free to reach out to her, or let me help you reach out to her here. Mm-hmm. Any questions from our students today about what Marina does? And it was a little different than more of a traditional weather presentation, but that's also by design because you guys get to hear about that from me and others in the department all the time. No, Thatcher, thanks. I see you there. We all have some sort of virtual Zoom fatigue here. How about my colleagues, Ari or Janelle, did you guys have any comments or questions?
Sure, I'll go. Thanks, Marina. That was really, really interesting. I'm curious about your own reduction of waste, like personally, because this is something that I and my family have really strived to do. And so I'm curious, do you have any I guess suggestions or just stories about in your own life, how you've been the most successful in reducing your waste?
Yeah, I definitely would start slow. A lot of people tend to go cold turkey with it. I have this method where at first, you do a waste audit of your biggest waste contributors, going into your fridge, going into the cabinet, seeing what you're buying, and even, putting gloves on and going through your trash, because the best way to reduce your waste is actually know which waste you are creating. As with my clients, a lot of people think that they're doing a lot better than they actually are. So once they do the audit, they are way more aware of their impact. And then the next week, I say for people to list 3 things that they're immediately stop buying, just eliminating from their consumption habits, and then list 3 things that you could reduce. So a big thing is when I used to eat yogurt, I really liked getting those little yogurt cups. So then I reduced to buying the big bulk containers instead. And then I just would slowly phase those out. And like my friends that drink milk, like try to reduce how many that you're buying so that it's a more slow process, and just keep on doing that until you get to a desired waste consumption. And then lastly, I have people do like the simple swaps. So after you finish your aluminum foil, you could switch to beeswax. Like people right away, when they want to go zero waste, they end up just throwing everything out to start fresh, which is super ironic. Like you should use up the stuff that you have. Like even Ziplocs, when I'm down at my family's events, they just are notorious for bagging things in Ziplocs, but I'll take them and I'll wash them. And then I'm really into meal prepping. So I'll store them in the freezer. And then that's like when you're ready to start collecting your waste. So like I said, I usually collect all my waste in a mason jar for the year. That's how much I've been able to reduce my impact. This year, I actually have a plastic bag full of stuff just because of COVID times. But if people collect their waste at first, they get really overwhelmed and then discouraged from it. So definitely do those techniques at first. And there's tons of resources online. We post about it too, but definitely doing it slow.
I just want to ask a quick follow-up, Jay. Is that all right?